Buenas and half a day. Thank you all for being here. The Committee on Education and Infrastructural Advancement, Border Protection, and Maritime Transportation, Guam Preservation and Self-Determination, and Federal and Foreign Relations will now convene this virtual information hearing. Today is Monday, January 25th, 2021, and it is currently 3:07 p.m. For the record and in accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Friday, January 15, 2021, and the second notice on Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. Notice of today's virtual information hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Joining us today for this virtual information hearing is Senator Mary Camacho Torres, Speaker Therese Terlahi, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Pito Terlahi, Senator Tello Taitagui, Senator Tony Yada, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Joseph Augustine. Last but not least. Thank you, Senators, for being here today and everyone for tuning in via YouTube and on TV. Before we proceed with the virtual information hearing, the legislature has general rules of conduct that must be followed. All must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon by the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into your microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app feature chat box. Individuals testifying first will be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Okay. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the public hearing by the host. As we begin this informational hearing, I've called for the hearing to provide our community any update with the Port Authority of Guam. I hope that everyone at home is listening and will be able to better understand the Port Authority of Guam's plans and measures, providing a safe and drug-free workplace to their personnel and support staff. The committee will also discuss continued safety guidelines for COVID-19 and the port's finances, specifically revenues and cargo throughput. I'd like to begin with the Port Authority of Guam. And I would like to acknowledge the General Manager of the Port Authority of Guam, Mr. Rory Respicio. Oh, there you are. Hi, Rory.
Hi, thank you very much, Madam Chair, to your Vice Chair, to members of this legislature. With us is our Chairman of the Board, Mr. Frank Santos, and also our two Deputy General Managers are also in attendance for this oversight hearing that you've called.
Thank you, Mr. Respicio. So now that we have acknowledged those who will be participating in this informational hearing, this is not an oversight hearing, it's an informational hearing. And but you do have an oversight hearing scheduled next week, and that's on another topic. But we would like to proceed. I believe the port has a presentation that you would like to present for the body and for the people of Guam. And yes, so I'll let you go ahead and take the lead on that.
Madam Chair, we provided this PDF of this PowerPoint to your office. I'm sure that you've given a copy to all the members that could follow along. But if I can begin by sharing the screen.
Mr. Respicio, forgive me if may I interrupt real quick. I'd also acknowledge Senator Barnes, Vice Speaker Barnes, and the Committee on Rules Chair, who is also present with us today. Thank you, Vice Speaker.
So we prepared this PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go through it as quickly and best I can, and I will be available to answer any questions that you may have. In this presentation, we will talk about the significant milestones from January 2019 to present. We will provide an overview of the Port Modernization Program, the 2020 Master Plan update and the key timelines. We would provide the status of Revenue Bond, Tiger Grant, and Office of Economic Adjustment funded projects, the status of grants and grant opportunities, and we would conclude with presenting the results of the climate survey. In the beginning of our administration, what we needed to do most immediately to avert the loss of port insurance on January 8th was to ask the board, in addition to hiring myself and the two deputy general managers, Dominic and Connie Shinehara at the time, was to ask the board authorization to pay the balances of the port insurance, which technically would have lapsed on December 15. It did not lapse, and the board was able to address this early on. We also averted the loss of a $10 million Tiger grant on the rehabilitation of Hotel Wharf. We worked with Governor Leon Guerrero and our board to approach the legislature on the revenue bond legislation and projects. Early on, we had determined that the revenue bond proceeds recognized $17.5 million for the demolition of this administration building and to build a new administration building somewhere off-site. And in recognizing 2010 master plan recommendation, the consultants at the time recommended instead of demolishing the building to build an annex, have a bridge to connect the two buildings so the administration building will become ADA accessible, and by reducing it by $7 million to identify the much needed repairs needed for the waterfront facilities, the installation of a connectivity fill line connecting Gulf Pier and F1, as well as the financial management and terminal operating systems. So the A&E designs and the consulting services were awarded in 2020 for the first four projects: the structural repairs for Gulf Pier, repair and expansion of the EQMR building, repair of Warehouse 1, and the replacement and relocation of water lines in the terminal facilities. Also within the first 100 days, on the 100th day to be exact, we negotiated the board union contract, which was approved by the board on July 30th, 2019. And this was forwarded up to the governor and the AG for their concurrence. We stabilized the operation and maintenance employee work schedule. What we found was that the employees, while there was a 2-week schedule issued, an employee who's supposed to be off on Wednesday, for example, or to work on a Wednesday, would be told to be off. And then for that same employee, he would be told on a Friday that we have to work on a Saturday just to make up the 40-hour work week. And that was happening at the port for a decade or so. And so we issued a 2-week schedule. We stuck by that. And after scheduling the employees in 8 hours of employment from Monday through Friday, it resulted in a 14.6% decrease in overtime costs. We are happy to report that after 14 years of losing its procurement delegation, we did receive procurement delegation by the Chief Procurement Officer, restoring the full delegation of the Procurement Authority in May of 2020. And we also embarked on a 2020 Port Master Plan update. The governor and lieutenant governor were able to secure a $1.6 million grant from the Office of Economic Adjustment to update the port's 2013 master plan. If you recall, the governor was very concerned about the port's working relationship with customs early on. And so she instructed us that within the first 30 days, we are to identify a suitable property in line with the legislation that became law that left it to the port to identify this area. And so this was done in the first 30 days, and the area that we've identified in working with customs is the area right before the weight station. The Gulf Pier Management Agreement in Area A, we amended the management agreement and removed Area A. This is those tankers in that area to be under the operation of the general manager. The port ensured the employees are trained through the necessary certifications as mandated by federal OSHA, the U.S. Department of Transportation, and the Coast Guard. after years of such certifications being expired. The port finances, we turned the finances around from a loss of $103,000 in fiscal year 2018 to earning nearly $7.5 million for fiscal year 2019. And despite this pandemic, Madam Chair and Vice Chair and Senators, the port posted a projected income of $4.1 million for fiscal year 2020. Our income statement and fiscal year 2018 budget. In 2019, through austerity measures, the port realized a positive net income of $3.5 million, irrespective of the fact that the FY 2018 budget did not include the cost of the 2018 compensation plan, expenditures incurred during the preparation and post-operations of Typhoons Yutu and Mutip, and OSHA certification inspections and past liabilities. We are moving on the need to take down the port's inoperable assets. And this is the 2 gantry cranes, the 2 RTGs, and possibly the sunken vessel and F6. This was published on December 31st of last year, and we expect an award to occur in the first quarter of this year to remove these inoperable assets. Organizational structure, the board rescinded May 30, 2018 prior board action, reverting the finance division to its original structure and reflecting financial affairs controller as the head of the division. Our crane surcharge reserve account, through the board's authorization, we established a crane surcharge reserve interest-bearing account, which allowed the port to obtain an estimated increase in earnings of about $60,000. The facility maintenance fee investment account, again, with the board's approval, we opened an interest-bearing account which revenues deposited will accrue at a higher interest income similar to the crane surcharge reverse account. Some of our policies, the board, through resolution, added on the approved list of holidays for no vessel operations, Labor Day, to recognize the value of employees and their contributions made to the strength, prosperity, and the well-being of the island. And they reinstated the board's policy on salary increment sub-steps for educational achievements, training certifications, licenses, which was arbitrarily stopped in the past administration. Interpersonal relationships, we established a mutual trust and understanding with the port customers, our federal, local stakeholders, and employees, which resulted in cargo operation productivity increasing and regular participative discussions affecting the port and its users being held. Our legal services, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Attorney General on assigning an attorney to the port to review the procurement solicitation package. Since November, we've had the pleasure and the blessing to be guided by Assistant Attorney General Tom Keeler, who's been with us since to handle all of our procurement projects. And in December, an attorney accepted the port's offer for employment as its in-house counsel. And this is attorney Christine Clavero, who is currently reviewing the business development matters that have been on hold for the last 10 years and assisting in the review of procurement-related issues. The port's compensation and classification plan, we developed through our Human Resources Division and through the help of Mr. Louis Baza, the implementation of the key performance indicators and work performance appraisal system, which were held in abeyance since 2013, and that this new evaluation system will be used for fiscal year 2021. Our ongoing projects, we have the system integration, the IT system integration, with collaboration between the port, PUG, and customs. And this project is to define the need for improved data and information sharing, reporting between the stakeholders involved in the cargo supply chain at the port. Also, the tariff simplification, and the goal is to simplify the tariff to make the port's informational technology system, the terminal operating and financial management system, to communicate better and streamline the invoices. The gantry crane purchase, to replace 2 of the Polo cranes, a grant application will be submitted to the U.S. Economic Development Administration for consideration. And when we get further into the slide, I'll explain exactly how we submitted a grant to Merit, but we were denied because of the Buy American provision. So we're socializing this through Office of Economic Development Authority. The Micronesian cruise ship development, the governor has established a group consisting of Guam Economic Development Authority, GVB, and the port to determine the benefits of home porting a small cruise ship and using Hotel Wharf as a primary receiving area for the visiting cruise ships. Recycling Enterprise Zone, it's the first law that I passed my first term in the legislature, and we're identifying an area that would be ideal for recycling facility on Cabarrus Island. The leases, the attorney is currently reviewing the GITA master leases that were conveyed to the port in 1988 and to determine if the Supreme Court's decision on Guam YTK had an impact on the renewal of the leases. In the overview of the Port Modernization Program, this is funded by the grant from Office of Economic Adjustment under the Department of Defense, and the Port Authority commissioned Persons Brinker Hoff to update the 1999 master plan for the Jose de Leon Grow Commercial Port in 2007. And the master plan's port improvement program was later updated in 2013 to reflect DOD's reset plans to reduce the number of Marines to be transferred to Guam. And then in 2013, this master plan was further updated to summarize the evolution of change in the Port Authority of Guam's modernization program and provide a roadmap to guide the modernization and future development strategy for the Port of Guam over the next 20 years. And then in January of 2019, the Port Authority Board and Management determined that based on the Leon Guerrero Tenero's transition report outlining the goals and objectives for the Port Authority of Guam in preparation for the military buildup and organic growth, a 2020 master plan update was required and sought a $1.6 million in funding through OEA to take for such undertaking. And the purpose of the master plan is to assist the port to define its near-term and long-term approach to modernization, maintain fiscally sustainable operations, and to promote increased awareness and consensus on its approach for all affected stakeholders and the ratepayers of Guam. I want to talk about the goals of this master plan update, so you have a really good understanding of Port 101 and what we're doing here. Is to provide a comprehensive overview of the port's current conditions, including governance, financial, operational, and physical attributes, to assess the current and projected cargo opportunities based on Guam's market drivers, which consist of the military expansion, tourism, transshipment, and organic growth, to determine the near-term improvements and operational adjustments to accommodate the peak of the military buildup and future deployments of military assets, to estimate the port's capacity and ability to meet the projected demand and tenant requirements, to identify long-term modernization efforts targeted towards continuing operational and economic sustainability, to establish optimal requirements for operations, maintenance, and repair and capital improvement projects, to validate the efficient and effective use of the port's resources and assets, to present commercial strategies for Port Authority of Guam to diversify its revenue base and enhance its financial self-sufficiency, including a comprehensive tariff assessment and its economic impact thereof, to assess the impact of the recommended strategies on Guam economic conditions, and to prepare an implementation program to support a coordinated approach of continuous port improvement balanced with sustainability. These specific planning initiatives are the Agate and Hagåtña Marinas, Area A feasibility, Cargo Terminal, Guam Customs Inspection Facility, the Harbor of Refuge, the proposed LNG facility, PUG Initiative for System Integration, and the Solar Panel Initiative Feasibility Study. And these specific planning initiative would take a look at the 20-year infrastructure and land use plan to develop for each demand scenario, to review ongoing commercial and non-commercial development, to review the impact of other developments such as the improved Guam Customs Facility, the improved Port Authority Port Users Group communication process, the STS crane fleet upgrades, the future PMC support, the improved facilities that are revenue bond funded and Tiger Grant funded, the integration of relevant stakeholder inputs on scenario analysis, and the near-term and long-term CIP development program. And the financial and economic analysis will update the Port Authority's financial model since 2018's bond issuance, FY 2019 and 2020 financial and operating results, the forecast for 20-year master plan time horizon, the cargo throughput, operating and maintenance expenses, capital development plan, the revenues, the financial feasibility assessment to determine the existing debt service coverage, the funds for port operations and maintenance, the capital plan and crane replacement, to consider port users group and the military's input, the scenario analysis, and to consider the tariff changes if necessary. The key timelines and the schedule with the master plan update. We kicked off this meeting in June 2020 with the governor and the lieutenant governor and the board. The WSP collected the data from July 2020 all the way to current. Also from July 2020 all the way to current, they're doing stakeholder outreach. In October 2020, we've had the draft findings presentation. Again, another meeting with the governor, lieutenant governor, and the board. Special studies presentation, November 2020. Market analysis and cargo forecast, November 2020. Capacity and needs analysis, November 2020. The draft report on the customs feasibility study was submitted December of last year. And why it's still in draft form is because this is a component of the entire 2020 master plan update, which will still have to be approved by the legislature, the governor, and the Port and the Public Utilities Commission. But we wanted to give customs an opportunity to start going with this draft report to try to source some federal grants, and also to work with their local and federal partners to see if they want to be a part of this building so they can securitize that rent and help fund it. And then the economic analysis summary, January of this year, we're expecting that. The timelines continue. So the draft master plan report, we expect it to be completed April 2021, with the final recommendations presentation May 2021. The final draft master plan report 1 will be June of this year. Then the draft report will be August of this year. Then a public hearing announcement after this has been transmitted by the board and then the governor, and then down to the legislature. So, no, I'm sorry, this is the AAA process. And then September 2021, then the public hearing minutes, comments review from our part is September 2021. And then the final 2020 master plan, October of this year, 2021. And then the BSP to review this and to forward to the governor, October 2021. The governor will review this that same month. And if it meets her agreement and concurrence, then it'll be submitted to the legislature for the legislature to review and to make changes and to hopefully eventually approve it. We have ongoing projects. The Hotel Wharf project. This is the construction management for Hotel Wharf. It's on the board's agenda for this Thursday. And should the board agree to awarding the CM services and the PUC concurs, the CM contractor will work with the port construction to do the construction procurement for this. And the anticipated completion for this project is August of 2023. And in this Hotel Wharf, there's a $10 million Tiger grant that's going to fund the below work, pier work, $3.8 million for the above pier work, the security fencing, the lighting, and then $10 million to do the access road and the infrastructure work that's required. This area has not only been identified for the cruise ship, but also to be a multi-use wharf to handle the roll-on, roll-off, and the taking off of cargo, break bulk that doesn't require a crane to do that. The Gulf Pier, the construction specifications and scope of work has been requisitioned, and this is something that Attorney Keeler is working on, and the CM construction RFP will be issued thereafter, and the anticipated completion date is September of 2022. The waterline project, the A&E design has been completed. The construction management scope of work has been completed by the engineering division. The procurement package is being developed, and the anticipated completion is December of 2022. The Warehouse 1 building repair, the A&E design is completed. The construction management scope of work has been completed by the engineering division. And same, the procurement package is being developed and its anticipation completion date is December of 2022. The EQMR building repair, A&E design has been completed. Same, the construction management scope of work by engineering and the procurement packages are being developed, and the anticipation completion date is December of 2022. The terminal booth and CMU wall replacement and barbed wire replacement. This is a merit funded project under the Port Authority Merit Grant Cooperative Agreement. Phase 1 was the interior and exterior of the CMU wall, and it's 100% complete. And phase 2 is the repainting of various port buildings within the yard, and the anticipated completion date is May of this year. The container yard stripping, merit funded project under the same cooperative agreement, and the completion date was November of 2019, last year. The load center rehabilitation and upgrade, this houses the generators. This is a FEMA 2017 Port Security Grant Program, and the complete upgrade of all port load centers, and the completion date January 2021. The Agate Marina, through our planning division, we're able to secure a $512,000 grant, and this is pending. This MOU is pending the AG's review, and it was initially submitted by the Department of Agriculture, and we're currently tracking this so that this MOU can be signed so we can begin this project. The Harbor of Refuge Repair, Department of Agriculture funded phase 2 to 5. The estimated project cost is $606,000, and the current status is that this MOU is also with the AG for review, and we're working with the Attorney General's office to get this released. But also in the Harbor Refuge Repair, I'm sure you heard that the Lieutenant Governor did a boat tour with EPA to look at all the derelict vessels in the harbor, in the area by Cabras and also port property. And there's 14 sunken vessels, and GPA has about 9 of these vessels within their property, and they've committed to funding whatever is required to remove that. The port will have to fund whatever is required to remove the boats on port property, but that the EPA already has $500,000 to put in toward this effort. The gantry cranes 2 and 3 demolition, as I mentioned, this procurement was published on December 31st. It's a port funded project. And we had a pre-bid conference and site visit that was performed just this morning. And so in the Port Modernization Initiatives, we have the 2020 Port Authority Master Plan Update, the new crane acquisition program, the JDE road migration to the JD Enterprise 1 to financial management system. This was one of the projects that was funded by the revenue bond, where we took the $17.5 million and the legislature reduced it because the board asked and we asked to reduce it to $10.5 million and the $7 million. This is one of the projects that was funded. The Port Wharves Assessment and Upgrade, the Customs Inspection Facility Study, the Tariff Simplification, Solar Power Energy Feasibility Study, the Field Connectivity Pipeline System for F1 Pier and Gulf Pier, and the Administration Building and Annex. So in the new crane acquisition, we did submit a $30 million grant to Merit. However, the grant was not approved on the basis that of the Buy American Act. They don't manufacture these cranes domestically. And so having said that, we were denied. We knew that all along, and we submitted a waiver anyway, a very robust project, asking for a waiver of consideration from the Buy American Act because of the special circumstances. But the good news is, Senators, Madam Chair, we still have that entire grant project that we're getting ready to submit through the Office of Economic Development Authority, and we're also working with USDA to finance the purchase of one gantry crane. So the award we're asking for is a 50% matching grant award, which makes this very competitive for us. We did upgrade from the Port's 20-year-old Oracle JDA World Financial Management to the Oracle JDE Enterprise One. And this is going to actually even help us job cost what it would cost to discharge, what it costs to discharge a vessel versus all the revenues that, all the billings that we're able to get back per the tariff. The port and WSP is aggressively assessing the critical important CIP projects, working towards the completing F1 to F6 comprehensive assessment toward the scope of the development. We've asked our consultants to make this scope of work a shovel-ready project. And we did submit our interest to FEMA to secure a $22 million grant to do the hardening of all the wharves from F1 to F6. And so we can finance this through that FEMA grant, then we don't have to use the revenue bond to go and harden the wharves. And that money can be used for same projects, but to handle any construction overruns that we will experience. The Customs and Container Inspection Facility, like I said, the 4-acre property was identified by the weight station. We had included this as one of the master plan updates. Our consultants, Dominic Muña of Operations, we've been working closely with Chief Pareto and the team. The consultants submitted the draft report on this facility, but only after Customs bought into it, and all their ideas and their plans and what they like to see, and what we've juxtaposed to port operations to make it so that there's no bottleneck. We're all those ideas are contained in this draft feasibility study. And I heard the other day that Customs was able to work with the Lieutenant Governor's Federal Clearinghouse to identify monies to at least begin the A&E. With the tariff simplification process, we've asked that it be revenue neutral, that we ensure the revisions will not result in either material increase nor decrease in port revenues. We ask that it be user-friendly, to present a schedule of rates table in front of the tariff to allow customers to quickly and easily calculate the fees. We ask that it be transparent, itemize details, rules, and regulations associated and combined rates. We ask that it be streamlined. We ask that it be modernized, time-saving, and cost-effective. So these are the guiding principles which guide this tariff simplification process. And so WSP has been meeting with our stakeholders, with the carriers, with the agents, making them understand that all of the charges that the tariff provide will be put in the front end, so that we're not having any hidden costs. And we run the risk too of not really charging or billing per the tariff if we're going to have to go and pick up those, check mark those additional boxes with all the other special services requests. The Port Users Group brought forward to us, the port, an idea to collaborate on the system integration. They want to have an IT where the port and the Customs and the Port Users Group can access and to have this improved data and the information sharing reporting between these three entities. And so the port's objective, Madam Chair, in doing this is improve efficiencies in operations, billing, collections, going paperless, and meeting the port users' operational needs. The port users' objective is to going paperless, pre-clearing of cargo containers, improving operational efficiencies, digital sharing of the manifest. Customs' objective is automation, going paperless, advanced clearing of cargo containers, significantly reduce front-facing clearances, searchable bill of lading, digitized manifests, interdiction of drugs, biosecurities, terrorism, and improved collections of the use tax. The solar panel initiative, the objective is to perform this feasibility study to determine if it's cost effective to put panel systems on the port buildings. The Gulf Pier, we want to create a redundancy in between Gulf Pier and F1. And so in order to do that, we have to have this field connectivity line. And so in the event that we're repairing Gulf Pier, for example, with this field connectivity line, we wouldn't have to shut down. We could totally shut down Gulf Pier and redirect all the petroleum products to be in F1. But because we don't have this field connectivity line, we'd have to keep Gulf Pier open at least 5 days out of the 30 days in order for the products to come through. Like I said, the construction of a new administration annex building and renovation of the adjacent old admin building, where our engineering division is really looking to see if it's cost effective to harden this building to include the electrical work, and if we can instead take a look at the design for the annex building and see if we can replicate that operation. But that report is being finalized. And this is a long-term project, probably 50 plus years. It's always been on the books. Is the feasibility study to conduct the deep water draft. And Madam Chair, I also want to point out with the EDA grant, the status of grant and grant opportunities, the Economic Development Authority, we did submit for the fill pipeline. We are looking at this costing $3 million with the EDA share to be $2.41 million and the port share to be $603,000. And I did want to recognize former Senator and Guam Acting Shippo Carlotta Leon Guerrero, who issued a Section 106 concurrence for the port's pipeline connectivity, paving the way for this project proposal to move into the next step. And the next step is EDA is moving forward with its legal review towards grant award issuance. The Department of Agriculture grant, the repair of the Agate Marina and moorage repairs of Harbor of Safe Refuge. As I mentioned, that draft MOU is still with AG's office and the Department of Agriculture. I explained the gantry crane acquisition, and the estimated cost for the 2 cranes is $30 million, and the port share is at $15 million. These prices are if we have to we would do a 50% cost share. The FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the 2020 Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, the BRIC grant, we had just submitted an application for the PAG WARV Service Life Extension hardening F1 to F6, and the project cost estimate is $22.3 million. Most recently, we're working with MARAD on the MARAD America's Marine Highway Program, the Marine Route Designation application. We did have a meeting with the CNMI port officials, and we've asked them if we could submit one application to MARAD designating the CNMI Commonwealth Ports Authority and the Port Authority of Guam for a joint route designation. And once we get this designation, what it means is for all those ports that have a marine highway route designation, they would have access to up to $3 million a year that we can apply for top lifters, heavy equipment. And so they're saying that that's kind of like the sweet spot for those kinds of grants. 3 million. Okay, Madam Chair, I can continue with the climate survey and then we can close out the presentation if that's okay.
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we recently conducted a climate survey. We wanted to ask the employees some questions directly to them, their experience at the port, and some feedback that management can have so we can better improve ourselves. And so there's a total of 356 employees that submitted survey responses, that were given surveys, and 317 responses, providing a participation rate of 89%. It was completely anonymous and it wasn't mandatory, and they were asked several questions. And in putting the data together, you would see the positive, neutral as a combination of strongly agree, unsure, excellent, good, and average, depending on the options available. The negative column is a combination of strongly disagree, and poor, depending on the options available for each question. No answers were recorded when a survey did not have a response for a question, and it was invalid if they're recorded when there were conflicting answers, meaning they chose agree and strongly disagree for a question. On job satisfaction results, I received information that I need to do my job. We got a 93% response rate. That's if you take the strongly agree, and the unsure categories. I get a sense of personal accomplishment from my work, 96%. I am proud to work for the Port Authority of Guam, 99%. The Port Authority of Guam is a great place to work, 98%. Employee morale at the Port Authority of Guam is good, 90%. My supervisor communicates to me on how I can improve my job performance, 94%. My supervisor knows her job well, 94%. Management knows her job well, 96%. Management recognizes Port Authority of Guam employees for their good work performance, 91%. My supervisor recognizes me for my good work performance, 92%. In the area of the pandemic, the question was, management makes my work environment a safe place to be during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's 94%. Management ensures that I'm well informed during the COVID-19 pandemic, 96%. Management provides me with all the resources I need to safely do my job during the COVID-19 pandemic, 93%. Management made it clear to me that they cared about my safety and well-being during the COVID-19 pandemic, 94%. In the area of career development, training opportunities at the Port Authority of Guam are offered to everyone, had an 81% response. My supervisors share their knowledge and skills on how to handle situations and how to become more effective and efficient, 91%. I believe that I will have promotional opportunities at the Port Authority of Guam, 89%. On the area of communication, my supervisors provide clarification and guidance on the job to help me carry out my work, 91%. Management provides me with regular updates on current events and advisories, 93%. My supervisor communicates frequently and honestly about issues that may affect me, 88%. Management supports two-way communication between managers and employees, 88%. And so the employees were asked, what's the most effective method to communicate with them? 103 said face-to-face, 100 said via WhatsApp. We do have a Port Authority-wide WhatsApp chat. 98 responded email, 84 written memo, 69 responded telephone, 28 didn't answer, and 9 said the preferred method of communication for them is through social media. And when asked, who do you seek to help resolve problems that prevent you from doing your work? 55% said they go to their supervisor, 18% say they go to coworkers, 11% goes to management, 10% goes to human resources, 4% didn't answer, and 2% go to their union stewards. On employee relation results, I believe the Port Authority employees have a good relationship with each other, 90%. I am able to go to my supervisor if I have a problem, 93%. I'm able to go to management if I have a problem, 91%. My coworkers are always willing to help each other, 92%. On teamwork, I make an effort to be a part of the team, 97%. In my department division, we work as a team, 91%. I support Governor Lulian Guerrero and the Port's Board of Directors' vision for the Port, 92%. I show fairness on organizational culture. I show fairness and respect in my interactions with fellow employees, 97%. I can adjust quickly to new situations, 98%. Management has an open door policy, 98%. Management is accessible and approachable, 97%. On a general survey questions, how would you rate your overall work experience at the Port? 98%, positive, neutral. How would you rate your overall morale at the Port? 94%. Oops. How would you rate management in the area of fairness? 91%. How would you rate management in the area of transparency? 93%. How would you rate management in the area of accountability? And 92%. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Respicio. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge your climate survey participation, and granted that you had 356 employees and 317 of those employees responded with all those positive remarks. You do have a low B, the 81%. So that's an area you need to improve upon, right? If you're getting A's and everything else. But no, congratulations to that. I think it's very important that we have a very positive environment within our government agencies. And knowing that this survey was an anonymous survey, so anyone was free to submit their true concerns and feelings about the Port organization, and to see the positive remarks that came back. So I'd like to congratulate you and all the supervisors there and the leadership there at the Port for the work that you are doing to keep the personnel safe and also the morale high. I will open it up to, I will open the panel. I will open up any questions for the panel that they may have, and then I'll follow with my own set of questions. Okay, let's start with Senator Torres. Do you have any questions at this time?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much, Rory, for that very thorough update. And congratulations to the staff and to the board of directors for your successes so far. I noted that there was no mention, and I recall a news release in December where the Port actually received a national award from the National Association of Government Accountants for their excellence in citizen-centric reporting. I think that is significant because that was one area of transparency that wasn't available for many years. And so I just want to note that wasn't in the report, but I think that it's a significant recognition, especially from a national body so early into your term. I understand it was for fiscal year 2019. The question that I had for you, though, is as you made your report on COVID, can you just tell the body what was the job experience for the Port employees? Was everybody required to show up physically to the Port to continue working from March onward at the start of the pandemic, or was there also other arrangements made for employees? Because I understand that there were a lot of measures made to keep them safe, but what was the nature of the work environment at the Port during COVID?
Well, the Port remained 100% operational simply because of the supply chain. And so we're following the CDC guidelines for a critical infrastructure worker. And it was pretty challenging because on one hand, you had the Joint Information Center and public health advisories saying that if you're exposed to not even confirmed positive, if you're exposed to a potential exposure, that you have to quarantine for 14 days. In the Port's case, for as long as the employee was not having symptoms or fevers or tested positive themselves, they came to work. And early on in February, even before the governor's declaration of emergency, I recall Dominic Louis and I having to go into the employee lounge area where about 30 port workers were very concerned. We had a vessel coming in with a crew member that was sick. And of course, at the time, up to now, there's so many, COVID is always evolving. And so we told them that we're going to take the precautionary measures necessary. We're going to give the gloves, the PPEs, and hand sanitizers. I had issued a directive for the protocol for the vessel operation saying that the employees are not to share common areas, or not to use the restrooms on board the vessel. And this protocol was actually shared throughout the other ports in Micronesia. And then when the governor declared COVID declaration of health emergency in March, we were struggling in a sense where the port was 100% operational, yet the employees here at the port were seeing that most of the government was shut down. And so we did very effective communication. We went to each division. We told them the importance of wearing masks, the social distancing, washing of the hands. We set up hand sanitizing, hand washing stations throughout the port. Almost immediately, the governor authorized the port clinic, where it's run by public health. It's run by public health. The nurses are DOE nurses and also healthcare professionals. And year to date, we have 44,171 visits to the port clinic. We've opened this up to our tenants here at the port, to customs, through to APL, to mail lines. Also the truckers, when they come in, sometimes we see the truckers pull to the side of the road, run in, have their temperature checked. I mean, it just provided a sense of calm for the employees to check in every day with the healthcare professional to answer any questions or concerns that they may have. Having all these precautionary measures in place, as you all know, we had 20 positives, and we lost a member of the port family, Mr. Henry St. Nicholas. But even at that, it's just their mind is so determined that their jobs are so critical that they have to come to work despite how afraid they are because of the uncertainty. But then as management has demonstrated in providing port advisories, any questions the port employees have, we address it. Any support that we need, we get it from the board, we get it from the governor. And so in this environment, I'm able to report 100% operational and that we didn't miss a beat. We also told the employees that when we get through this pandemic, which we always will, we want to make sure that the port continued on this operational trend of taking care of some of the more critical projects. We were actually able to do a coral relocation project at Hotel Wharf. And that was one of the environmental mitigation that we committed to doing in order for the 10 million Tiger grant to be released. So everything that you're seeing over the last 9 months on top of operations, things didn't suffer in terms of operations. And we kept our employees as safe as we can. We also stood up our own contact tracing team, where we asked public health if we, and there was 6 of us and myself included, we went on the CDC website to be a nationally certified contact tracer. So we didn't want to be a burden on public health. And every time we had an exposure, we already knew what to do following those CDC guidelines and protocols. And all we had to do, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Senators, is simply tell public health how many employees we needed to be tested. And so we gave the number, they coordinated it, we coordinated the testing. And so we had that seamless process and relationship. We didn't rely on them at all. We wanted to take care of everything we can to the best that we can.
Yes, excellent. Yeah. Thank you. More than anything, thank you very much for keeping the supply lines and the ability to move product into Guam flowing so smoothly during that critical time when anxieties were very high for our island. And please extend my love and concern for the Port family, who I will always hold very dear to my heart. Sizus Maasi.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Senator Torres. I'd like to now call on Speaker Tulahi. Do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the General Manager and the Deputy Managers, and of course to the Chairman of the Port, Hafaday. I just have two questions. One is, you described the customs facility and how you are moving on that. But I wanted to know if there has been any interdiction of drugs at the port or on the ships or at the dock, if that has improved during your tenure, or if there's any problem that you foresee that will not be solved by having a customs facility down the road. In other words, not immediately available at the docks.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. What I will report is that the Port Authority and Customs have a very good relationship. That early on, I'd mentioned to Director Pareto that he has an all-access pass to go everywhere and anywhere necessary to do whatever's necessary to inspect the containers. There's only two entities, as we know, that can inspect a container or even open up a container. It's the captain of the port, who's Captain Chase, and also Customs. And so in letting Customs know that they have the authority to go within the yard, it all stems back to the governor asking us to look at the Port Authority and our broader responsibility to the community. So it's not just discharging a vessel, putting on a chassis, and putting the container out. It's getting Customs to inspect these containers and supporting them to inspect the containers, and that's what we've been doing. They do have their operations. We do have FBI, DEA. I mean, the investigations are always going to be active, and we're going to always support whatever is necessary in the areas of drug interdiction.
All right, thank you. And I know you went through a long list of projects, but there's one that if you could just clarify. So it's called the Tariff Simplification, but it's supposed to be revenue neutral. So you're just might this have impacts to the tariffs themselves? I mean, on the consumers?
No, so we're in our last 1% tariff for this fiscal year, and the financial feasibility study is going to determine if the port would have to seek a tariff increase. That's one area. The other area with the tariff simplification is we want to make sure that it's just about repackaging and redesigning how the charges are made, and so that when estimates are given, the upfront costs are going to be the true cost. In the case of the port, we have what you call special services requests, and so you have main charges, and then you have all these over 100 some category of charges. And the concern there is if you don't have the tariff staff check marking those boxes, we could see revenue that we're not collecting. And early on, I told the carriers that we're going to bill per the tariff, and we've been making those adjustments to include. I had rescinded a memo by a former general manager, Pedro Leon Guerrero, that did the guaranteed work modified guaranteed gang schedule. And so if the vessel operators and the agents determine that it's going to take 18 hours to discharge that vessel, for the tariff, they have to charge 18 hours. If they finish it in 16 hours, they still charge 18 hours. And if they finish in 20 hours, they charge in 20 hours. So by one fell swoop of a pen, and to rescind that order, we're actually billing per the tariff. We believe that it's been a step forward in increasing our revenues here, and it also helps us capture some benefit of having increases in productivity. What it once took 36 hours to discharge a vessel, and we're finishing that in about 18 hours. In the past, they were billed at 18 hours, whereas they should have always been billing at those guarantees that they make early on. So that's all part of the tariff simplification process.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I hope we don't see a
Correct.
increase
No.
too much, because when the bond came through the legislature, I remember being assured that it wouldn't require increase.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, we share your sentiments. So does the board and the governor. And the Port Users Group, you know, they're seeing that we had a net income of $3.5 million. And then for last fiscal year, a projected net income of 4.1 million. They're already asking about rebates, but we're saying, let us get through all of these revenue bond funded projects. Let's continue the work of former General Manager Brown and former General Manager Torres and others who sat in this seat. And let's figure out what's needed. And then we can talk about rebating if we're still going down this course.
Thank you, and thank you all for all your work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Pito, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to point out, that I just wanted to ask the general manager, how often do they share narcotics information with Custom? And the reason why I asked that, Rory, because according to what we've learned, there's only 7% of all the containers that are coming into the Port Authority has been being inspected by Custom. And I just wonder why.
Senator, thank you for the question. As I said, there's two entities that are mandated to do the inspections, and that's Customs and the captain of the port. However, we do share responsibility in providing that these containers are inspected. For instance, the port previously purchased the mobile X-ray machine, and then coming through a port security grant, and then we assisted in providing the maintenance to get that mobile X-ray machine operational. We're also working with our consultants to do the container inspection facility. We've identified actually very prime property within the port's footprint to build that facility. What I do get requests every now and again from Customs on containers that are flagged, and then we provide those specific instances where the top loader has to go in, pull that container out, bring it into the warehouse, and then do the inspection. But I'll say, though, that with the governor wanting to have a searchable bill of lading, that's going to go a long way to move forward on the drug interdiction efforts, because then you could see what's supposed to be in the container versus how much the container weighs, and you can start flagging those discrepancies.
And I just want to add that, in the late 1960s and early 70s, when I was in charge for narcotics, I worked very closely with Commercial Port and also with Custom. And, we eradicated heroin at the time. And we also eradicated the importation of cocaine. So I'm just kind of, maybe we can move up the 7% to at least 10% or 20%. That would surely help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Pito. Senator Joe, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Rory, General Manager, thank you for your presentation. And to the Chairman, Bishop Santos, thank you, sir. I'd like to extend to the folks at the Port Authority, stay strong, just be safe. And my office will be contacting your office to communicate on certain issues that we would like to address, but not at this point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin. Senator Titagui, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, according to your agenda, it says, is this the part we talk about, the drug work? Let me pull that up again. On your agenda.
That's correct.
Okay, this is the time we can ask the questions. It's not just.
Well, I know that there's a presentation, but I wanted to get this part done first.
Okay.
Because we have limited time, and then if we have to recess, we can recess and come back, or we do have another oversight hearing that's going to take place.
Okay.
We'll include that in the agenda if we miss it, but I wanted to I hope we'll have enough time, but I think we will.
Okay. Thank you. Then I'll just stay on point with regards to the presentation then.
Okay.
So Hafidi Rory, good to see you again. Thank you for being here and presenting a very thorough presentation, as well as Mr. Chairman. It's so good to see you. And the Deputy General Managers that are here as well, that's in the background. Can't really see your faces back there, but we know you're here, and thank you so much. Rory, you mentioned, about the insurance. Who is your current insurance carrier at the port?
Our current insurance carrier has always been the insurance carrier for as long as I can remember. It's AM Insurance.
AM Insurance?
Correct.
Okay. And they were there before you came on too?
And many years before that.
Okay, AM Insurance. I guess they're giving the port the best deal then to keep them on. That's good to hear. If they are, aren't they? Okay.
They are.
Okay, the second one is, what role does the port play with regards to customs and capturing use taxes? Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, that's really a good question. And the RSM project, where we want to bring in the customs, the port, and the port users. And I talked about the benefit for customs in doing that IT integration is also to recognize the use taxes. The public auditor did a report saying that we have, I think, a ballpark of $200 million in use tax that the government's not collecting because of the kind of inadequate infrastructure that's in place to be able to collect those use taxes. So in that RSM project, they're coming up with, the port has the capacity IT-wise. They just have to come up, the consultants are coming up with what kind of system the customs has to get and what kind of system the carriers have to get in order to create this community portal.
I beg your pardon. Forgive me, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think we're offline on YouTube. So can we just pause real quick and verify with AV and make sure that we're still connected?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being patient. We are having some technical difficulties here at the legislature, but we are back online. At this time, I'd like to give my sincerest apologies to Senator Dwayne. Yes, he was present since the beginning of this hearing. Forgive me for not recognizing you. I guess we're having difficulties here on my end as well. So we left off with Senator Taitigui and her question to the GM, Roy Respicio. So Senator Taitigui, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the sake of time, I did ask the first question. The Port Authority is continuing to use AM Insurance Company for the port. And my question was, what role does the port play with assisting customs in capturing the use taxes?
Yeah, thank you, Senator Taitigui, for that question. I was explaining that the RSM project that'll bring the Port Authority, the Port Users Group, and Customs together to establish a community portal. The port does have the IT capacity, and so this RSM project is to come up with what the carriers need to do to tap into the port's IT infrastructure, and then what customs need to do to tap into this community portal, where you can have a big step forward would be the searchable bill of ladings to not only help with the collection of the use taxes. There was a public auditor report that talked about as much as $200 million that's not being collected, only because customs does not have the IT infrastructure to do that, and possibly some other reasons. And so the port is working closely with customs. They received a $300,000 grant from BSP, Bureau of Statistics and Plans. And we're kind of saying that wherever RSM leaves off, that's where customs should continue. So we're not having a case of 2 steps forward, 10 steps backwards, and we're really going to have to integrate. So while the port does not play a role, just like I said, the port does not have the responsibility of drug interdiction, but we do have the responsibility of the broader community. So we're supporting customs every step of the way. And in the RSM project, that's one way to support customs. I talked about the port's objective, improved efficiencies in operations, billing, collections, going paperless, and meeting the port users' operational needs. The port users' objective is to go paperless, pre-clearing of cargo containers, improving operational efficiencies, digital sharing of the manifest. And customs objective with this RSM project is automation, going paperless, advanced clearing of cargo containers, significantly reduce front-facing clearances, searchable bill of lading, digitized manifests, interdiction of drugs, biosecurities, terrorism, and improved collections of the use tax.
Thank you, Director Respicio, and I hope your timeline is just as aggressive as what you're doing at the port right now because of the loss of revenue, especially, I'm sure you're keeping an eye on revenue coming in to the government of Guam right now. So greatly appreciate that. And for the sake of time, Madam Speaker, I'll save my other questions till later. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Senator Moylan, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the panel. Just one question for Director regarding with the COVID situation. Can you give us an idea about the amount of cargo that you have seen coming into the port? Has it been greatly affected? The amount of containers out unloading and so forth. How has the COVID has affected that, please? That's my only question.
Thank you, Senator. Great question. So we're tracking obviously month to month. And to no surprise, we ended up 1% more in cargo container throughput last fiscal year, or 2% rather, year to date during the pandemic. And as of November, we were like 6% behind. In December, we made it up. We're 1% ahead. Early on in this pandemic, we had to take a meeting with Standard & Poor's, who put the port on credit watch. Because they're tying the port to JVB's general fund and also the airport. So we've been on credit watch. We hopefully are able to make an argument that despite the pandemic and the severe financial shortfalls that those other entities are experiencing, we're actually posturing to have a projected net income of 4.1 million for last fiscal year. And I was also asked to give an update, which is in line with your question, on the financial update as of December 31st. And so the revenues and cargo throughput year to date, the port's total year to date operating revenue for December 20 is 14.9 million, which is 7% or 943,000 higher compared to year to date December FY21 budget projection of 13.9 million. The total number of containers handled as of December 2020 is 21,753, which is 1% higher or 162 more containers compared to last December 2019 total of 21,591. Our operating expenses, overall spending year to date is actual budget versus actual budget of FY 2020 of 12.9 million is 1% lower than the budget of December of 13 million. So our revenues are going slightly up. Our expenses are down. Our overtime expense and direct labor revenue, overtime year to date for divisions involved in operations is 271,863, which is 16% lower than year to date budget of $322,023. The overtime for budget resulted in a decrease of 23% or 23,000 as compared to November, from 99,205 in November to 75,995 in November. Our direct labor reimbursement is 848,000, which is 4% or 34,000 higher than FY21 budget of 815,000. And so what we've also did is, the governor and the community and the board and senators ask a lot of the port. And so in this pandemic, for the tariff, you have 5 days to get your container out of the port. And because when governor first declared the public health emergency, you had containers that were already on the ship. And so in working with the port users group, What we're doing is we're extending the number of free days up until we get back to PCOR 4. But what it means is that these businesses can still bring their containers in, they can stockpile it at the port, and whenever they need to get those containers, as those businesses start opening it up, they will work with the agents and the port to get those containers out. It doesn't cost us money to have these containers at the port. But what I did want to make sure is that we're charging on the special services request. So every time a top lifter or a forklift has to go and dig a container out, we're tracking all those expenses, which is possibly why the direct labor reimbursement is 4% higher. And in last fiscal year, the direct labor reimbursement was almost $1 million more than what we projected. And the way the board projected the revenues for this year is we wanted to see what the actual collection experience is during this pandemic. So the board had asked us to take April to July, extrapolate that over 12 months. In the last 2 fiscal years, we have a monthly allotment of $4.9 million. We wanted for this coming fiscal year to keep that monthly allotment, to do the exercise to see if on a reduced revenue with the increased debt service, we would be able to maintain the 4.9 million. Also, given the statutory requirements for the personnel categories for the increments, we are still living within the $4.9 million monthly allotment. And we're still, even with lower revenues, even with reduced budget, we're still, we're going up and going down where we need to realize a positive net income. And that's what the board is required of us. I just gave a financial update, and that's what the senator asked, your chair asked me to do anyway. So I think that satisfies that component. Oh, and by the way, the year-to-date operating revenue minus year-to-date expenses, we have a projected net income is 56% lower than year-to-date. However, the net income budget is 1 million. So we're still realizing a positive net income year-to-date.
Senator Moylan? Okay. Senator Duenas, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me, and to Senator Respicio, the chairman, and also Chairman Santos, and other board members, as well as members of the port team. I only have one question for the general manager. I noticed in the presentation on customs and the plan going forward on the construction of the inspection station going forward. As you know, Senator, we worked on this together under the Guam Invasive Species Council and the requirements that department. I have a two-part question. Is the Department of Agriculture currently active as per that requirement as being a co-frontliner with the customs to be aggressively inspecting cargo coming in for invasive species? And also, are they coordinating as well with agriculture, with customs on the design, build, and construction components of the upcoming customs inspection? And I thank your team for all their work, and that's my only question, Madam Chairwoman.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. I had a feeling you were going to ask about the biosecurities. Good question, because the Customs is looking at all the revenue streams pursuant to their mandates, and the Biosecurity Fund, which you've established, is one of them. And they're also reaching out to other local and federal partners to see if they can be housed in that container inspection facility, and they'll just pay the portion of the rent that's required. I'm not sure in regards to your first question. I could follow up with the Biosecurities Council or Customs and Agriculture to see if there's some issues there. But with respect to your concern about how we can consolidate that operation into the container inspection facility, those have been factored as part of that equation.
Thank you. Senator Duenas, that's all? Or do you have any more questions? Okay. Senator Ada, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. General Manager Respicio and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Santos, how you guys doing? Thank you for the presentation. I think it give us a good breakdown of how things are going at the port. I didn't have any issues with getting any of our containers out of the port during the pandemic. I think the port people have really put their best foot forward and continue to service the people of Guam in times of uncertainty. And I think that's what's important, is that we continue to move forward with the goods of flowing in and out of the island. On your presentation on page 40, you were talking about the fuel pipeline connectivity project, and I think if I'm correct, if I recall correctly, there was an issue with a fuel pipeline running right through the Port Authority, right? In a secured area. Does this take care of that issue that they had in the past?
Yeah, that's an issue that we have been talking about in the legislature, and there's some legal issues with respect to easements, and it's one of the things that the new council has been tasked to look at.
So, but does this grant cover that particular, or is this just a different project for the grant that is applied here?
Correct. It's a totally different project to connect Gulf Pier and F1 and to create that redundancy. But
okay, so then
separate.
So then that is still a separate issue that still needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Brown, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and certainly to Chairman Santos. I know we haven't been able to hear from you, but I just want to extend my hello. And certainly to GM Respicio, I did have several questions. I'll ask them quickly. I know time is of essence here. But with regards to your bond projects, now that it's been over 2 years, and you did mention the timelines of completion, what projects have you broken ground on already for construction?
Well, then, while we wanted to break ground immediately, what we found is we've had to do certain things administratively. For example, the Tiger Grant. Early on in the term, we were given 3 weeks to figure out how come it took 3 years to get that thing off the ground. Chairman Santos and I flew to DC with Joe Havana to meet with Merit to explain to them the challenges and this cookie cutter thinking that one size fits all wasn't the case in Guam. I explained to them, Senator Brown, that the reason for the delay is because, for as far as I can tell, that the port was waiting to see what would happen with the bond project in order to move forward with the Tiger Grant application, because there was a matching grant requirement. So we got through that. We're working on the A&Es right now. And the biggest thing too is with the revenue bond legislation and how it's structured, you've identified the project and the amounts, and those amounts were estimated at 2014. So we're anticipating coming back to the legislature, having to retweak those numbers. We are issued the A&E, as I mentioned, for 4 projects, but with these timelines, with Attorney Keeler on board, with Attorney Christine Claveria, we're very confident that we're going to meet these revised deadlines with Merit. And Merit has approved all of these revised timelines, given the COVID pandemic situation as well.
No, I appreciate that. I know Merit's very well aware from the beginning to the end with regards to the Tiger Grant funding and our efforts to pursue the bond. But out of those projects that are identified, do you have any order of what you are going to be able to execute sooner? Because I know we are a bit anxious. It's been a couple of years, of course, since the funding was acquired. I'm sure our bondholders want to see those projects in construction. So do you have a schedule on which one you'll be able to do first, second, or third? I know you elaborated on the Tiger Grant with Hotel Wharf, but the water lines and other critical infrastructure. Which will you break first?
Yeah, it looks like Hotel Wharf coming out of the gate. On the agenda for this Thursday's board meeting is the approval of the CM, the construction management for Gulf Pier. We also have the preliminary A&E design for the water line, for the warehouse, EQM, our building. everything is going to just come down almost all at the same time, and we're just going to have to manage it. But we're just as excited as you are and the community is to see these port modernization programs and revenue bond funded projects go through.
So we'll hear soon that you'll have those projects out for bid to contractors to be able to bid on those projects in the next, how many months do you think?
We think that we're going to award the CM with Gulf Pier in the first quarter of this year. And that's after getting the PUC approval. Because as you know, any revenue bond funded project must go to the PUC, and moreover, if it's $1 million or above. But on a personal level, I would be looking forward to your support in particular when we have to come back and ask that those amounts and caps per project. I'll give you an example. Gulf Pier was capped at $2 million. We already know that it's not going to be $2 million, as well as the other projects. And I'm going to have to first have this very tough discussion with your chair and your vice chair, with the board and the governor, and then we'll come down as a team to figure out how best to approach this.
One other question I didn't see elaborated on your presentation has to deal with your equipment status. If you don't have that readily available, that's something you could provide to the legislature, what your current operational equipment status is, and then also what any additional equipment you've acquired in the last couple of years, just so we can track the equipment that's been acquired. And then I also wanted to inquire, is the maintenance still being maintained with regards to your washdown facility? Is the equipment in the yard still being properly washed down? Is your washdown facility operational, and is that maintenance being addressed?
It is, and in fact, we also brought customs back to be able to wash down their official vehicles in the yard.
Okay, so can you provide that to us in the committee and certainly to my office? I'd be curious, obviously, to keep track. It's very critical to make sure that equipment's maintained. One last question, and I know Senator Peter Tolar, he brought it up, but have you had any joint inspections, not just with Customs or with the Coast Guard, because that's pretty standard, but with regards to DEA and any other local and federal entities, Guam Police? That's not uncommon for those type of inspections to happen in the yard. As you know, we have a growing drug problem on the island, and there's no doubt in the past, there's evidence that has come through the Port of Guam. I don't doubt it's still coming through the Port of Guam and other ports of entry. Have you had any type of joint inspections, unannounced inspections of that type at the port during your tenure?
Well, I appreciate your question, and I'm sure you can appreciate my situation where I can't discuss any active and ongoing investigations. But as I said,
but you could discuss this. At least you can elaborate. Have any type of inspections of that nature occurred?
Yeah, I will not. I will not respond to that, only for the fact that there are active investigations going on at the port. But as I mentioned, though, we are very accommodating with Customs, as well as other federal law enforcement entities.
Okay, well, I think it'd be good for the public to know that hopefully maybe at some point we'll hear if those type of inspections have occurred, because I think with all the growing issues of drugs in our community, I'm sure our people want to have some sense of comfort that any actions of activity going through the port are being, followed up on, so that we can reduce that the import of these type of dangerous drugs into our community. With that, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to provide some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy Respicio, we'd like to ask you now to, if you can continue with the agenda. I believe you have a brief presentation on the drug-free workplace program policy for the port.
Yeah, I do. Only to say that we do have the drug-free workplace program, and we do have the SOP that guides us. I believe that the chair announced that there's going to be a separate oversight hearing to discuss that, hirings at the port, and certainly we welcome that. But I did want to take the opportunity to just sum up by way of a video presentation on the port and the pandemic. If I could do that real quick, it's a couple of minutes. Let me play it.
I also want to note going forward that for the next one, that there is also the program policy available on your website for anybody who wants to review it ahead of time. And I know that it's about a 33-page document, as I recall.
Okay. And let me just continue this. Thank you.
In early 2020, the deadly COVID-19 pandemic was racing across the planet. More than 40 million infected, more than 1 million deaths. The magnitude of this deadly virus was something we watched in the news, and it seemed so far away. But we soon learned that the unrelenting virus made its way to Guam. And to try and stop the spread and save lives, the island went into lockdown. For months now, our community has suffered through one of the most devastating and deadly pandemics in world history. And yet all along, the Port Authority of Guam has remained 100% operational. In order to keep the critical Port Authority of Guam operational, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio authorized the creation of the Port Clinic. Staffed by nurses from DOE and Public Health, this clinic has had more than 30,000 visits from Port employees and tenants. These frontline nurses help to ensure the safety of everyone working at our island's only commercial seaport. The port then began taking other measures, including installing plexiglass throughout the facilities and hand washing and hand sanitizing stations. Mandatory mask requirements were quickly instituted. Social distancing required. Deep cleaning and sanitizing of the facility was launched and continues today. Despite all of the precautionary measures taken, as the positive cases around the island began to rise, it did so as well at the port. Immediately, the port launched its own port contact tracing team. The team members volunteering to take on additional duties and all became nationally certified contact tracers. Their work has helped to slow the spread of COVID-19 at the port and has identified hundreds of close contact exposures of port employees. The port's contact tracing team coordinates testing for all exposures. The port employees who have become infected are a top priority of the agency, and because they are a family, the Port Strong family makes sure they know they are not alone. Care packages filled with medical supplies and other goods are delivered to the employees to help them through these difficult times. And yet through everything, this worldwide pandemic, surge of cases on island, Guam being shut down, the Port Authority of Guam has remained 100% operational through it all. The employees understand how important their work is to every single man, woman, and child on Guam. The employees know that they have to put their fears aside and keep pushing through to make sure the vital goods that our people need continues to flow into the island. The employees of the Port Authority of Guam have always called themselves Port Strong. For decades, it has been a source of pride for the workers at the seaport. Now, more than any time in history, you can see firsthand why they are called Port Strong. This amazing and fierce Port Strong spirit and the determination you see on the faces of these employees to not let the people of Guam down during this pandemic is so powerful that it's almost impossible to explain. One thing is for certain though, this has been their defining moment. When our island needed our port and its workers the most, they never failed them. That Port Strong spirit has carried them through.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I believe that we are offline on the YouTube, and we do have people that are watching on YouTube live. So can we just take another quick break so AV can verify? Okay, thank you everyone for being patient. We're back online again. Mr. Respicio, can you please move forward with the, thank you for showing the video. It's very informative, and I'd like to thank all the port employees for the hard work that they've been doing, especially during this pandemic, really being a part of the front line and ensuring that we get all of our goods imported and our food resources imported so that we may be able to sustain ourselves during this time. Can you please move forward and do the presentation for the drug-free workplace?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, so in the area of drug-free workplace, we are guided by the drug-free workplace policy and the standard operating procedure for the implementation of the drug-free policy. All of the positions at the port, to include the law enforcement positions, as well as my position, the deputy general managers, every single employee here at the port is in a test designated position. And so coming into the port, of course, there's all that chatter that the port employees are on drugs, that the drugs are coming in through the port. We have been testing consistently on workplace accidents. We have not had any positive cases showing up until early December of last year. We had an incident on the yard, an accident. We tested the employee, he tested positive. And so in the employee and implementation of the drug-free workplace, how we approached it is that the employee did everything right. He recognized the problem that he has. We had set him up to go through the Guam Behavioral Health. There's a provision in the personnel rules and regulations that call for suspension in lieu of termination and the maximum infractions provided therein. And then so I issued a notice of proposed adverse action, and then there's 10 days to issue the final adverse action. Within that time, I had the employee tested, and the employee tested negative. So that's a good demonstration to us that that employee is on the right path. We also checked in with his drug rehabilitation counselor, saying that he's doing everything right. And so because he was deemed positive as a result of a drug test, there was some adverse action taken against him. He's went through the program, and so far so good. And part of this program requires us to drug test at any time, and if any time he tested positive once, he would be terminated. And then so mid-December, we had a situation, there was a hole in the wall. 3 employees tested, 2 employees tested positive for methamphetamine. The same scenario, both employees, we had them go to Guam Behavioral Health to do an intake. Several days later, I ordered drug tests on both of them. One employee came back negative, and then the other employee came back positive, this time for 2 additional substances. And so we had to wait for a confirmatory to come back to us before we can proceed with the adverse action process. So certainly if employees are in that situation and they're testing positive even one more time, then their fate has been determined by them. So Dominic, Louis, and I and the team, we talked about doing a random drug test, which can be done on reasonable suspicion, on workplace accidents, or just random where you do lottery of the positions and those positions come out. So on December 31st, I wrote a memo to all the employees, reminding them of the drug-free workplace, reminding them of drug testing based on these conditions. And then so we did the drug testing on a particular division based also on reasonable suspicion. 24 employees were tested, 24 employees came back negative, 2 employees evaded, and for whatever reason they evaded, that same day they resigned. And so in looking at those 2 employees that evaded, I determined that there was 2 leaders, there was a supervisor and a superintendent that were close to these employees in a leadership capacity. I'd issued a notice of proposed adverse action to each of them because I told them that if I determine that there's an employee is positive as a result of a drug test, they're also going to be held accountable. It's going to take all of us to come together, circle the workers here, and identify those who need to come in to get the help. If they come in before they're determined positive as a result of the drug test, then certainly we would help them to be rehabilitated. But once they determined to be positive as a result of a drug test, then those administrative consequences will occur to include termination. And then there was another employee the morning of the drug test that was messaging in the employee divisional chat not to bring any illegal things to the port because the port is conducting random property searches. And so I talked to the employee as well. And so there was 5 notice of proposed adverse actions that I issued. And that's the most to which I can talk about them because they're an ongoing personal matter. And we have yet to conclude what the final disciplinary action will be for those cases. And so I hope you're seeing our approach. It's not selective prosecution, or it's not letting those who are close to us skate, letting those who are not close to us resign or be terminated. We're saying, we hope to demonstrate that at the port, again, we recognize our broader responsibility to the community. And in the area of drug rehabilitation, in the area of our employee assisted program, the things that I'm doing are not new to the Port Administration. They are policies that exist, and we're following those policies. And so, which Senator Torres pointed out, your vice chair, that these policies are on the port's website for the public to review. But 24 tested, 24 came back negative. And we're going to continue to do these kinds of drug testing. Is there any specific questions, Madam Chair, that you had?
Yes.
That's just kind of not an
Yes,
overview
thank you.
of our
Thank
policy.
you, Ray. Also, you mentioned that there was adverse action taken for those individuals that tested positive. And so I'm thinking that this is the time where your personnel matter, the one that you mentioned at the beginning, the group that you mentioned at the beginning, you don't have a drug, a zero tolerance workplace where once you test positive for any type of controlled substance that you are terminated, you allow them a second chance. Is that your process?
Well, we don't.
Explain that?
Yeah, we don't have safe harbor at the port because law enforcement and test designated positions. But what we do have in the policy is suspension in lieu of termination. And I believe that if the policy calls for an infraction to be matched by a certain consequence, I believe that if I go beyond what that consequence is, then you have a civil service case. What I'm doing as general manager and is treating this drug in instances as though how we treat our own family issues. We're getting the help for those employees who need the help. But again, the records there, the processes are there for any audit to be looked at. If the employee wants to better themselves, I even reached out to Teresa Ariola, the director of the Guam Behavioral Health, asking her what is her capacity at Guam Behavioral Health, because if employees do come in to get the help prior to being identified as a result of a drug test, I cannot just say, come see me, we'll work with HR, and then they go to behavioral health and there's no space for them. So Teresa Ariola, Director Ariola, is committed that they have the capacity, and they've been helping us with these instances. So in the last 24 months that I've been here, we've had 3 instances where 3 employees tested positive.
Okay, and then you're able to go through the rehabilitative process through some measures of suspension in lieu of termination, but they still keep their job. They just don't receive their paychecks for that time, and then they're still in some sort of program that is offered through behavioral health.
Correct, Madam Chair. And when they're going through this drug rehabilitation program, they have to sign leave on their own dime. Either they sign annual leave, sick leave, or they have leave without pay, or even leave sharing, because their focus has to be on their own drug rehabilitation, and they cannot be coming to work at the same time they're going through that problem. So it's not slapping someone on the wrist. It's not giving them a pass. They have to do the hard work. And believe it or not, this one employee in that division that tested positive and then tested negative and is going through this drug rehabilitation program, we have his frontline supervisors who have just circled him. They're checking on him. They had a conversation with him and his family. I'm just amazed how the Port Authority employees as a authority had just come together and picked those who are down and out and figure out a way to pick them up. And it's that same spirit that we presented during the COVID-19 pandemic, to ask employees to be contact tracers, to ask them to do the functions of public health. There's no, whatever you ask them, they'll do, but just get them the guidance, get them the tools, get them the resources, and we'll go above and beyond. And you might not think it's port operations to be involved in drug rehabilitation, but I've had conversations with the governor, and she said, Rory, you have to treat the port and understand the port's broader responsibility to the community. To just fire people and then put them out in the community, it becomes a community problem. And I want to assure you, your members of your committee and the legislature, that we're not soft on drugs. I'm not soft on drugs. I'm not soft on crime. I'm not afraid to terminate people, and I have. But I'm also always going to make sure that employees have due process. And this is part of the due process.
Thank you. Senator Torres, do you have any questions at this time?
I don't have any questions, but I think it's important, though, just coming off of what the general manager talked about, to read very briefly the statement of policy of the port's drug-free workplace policy, program policy. It states that the commercial port is committed to a drug-free workforce to protect the safety of employees and the public. The authority administers a drug screening program with strict policies and procedures in place to ensure its accuracy and integrity. It is the policy of the Jose D. Leon Guerrero Commercial Port that applicants given conditional offer of employment shall submit to a drug screen. In order to protect the safety of the employees and the public, no applicant whose test shows illegal drug use will have employment considered. So you have to pass the drug test off the bat. It is the policy of Jose D. Leon Guerrero Commercial Port that employees may be required to take a drug screen to show they are drug-free if there is a reasonable suspicion or illegal drug use. The authority will give current employees an opportunity to rehabilitate and return to their jobs as productive members of the workforce whenever applicable by law. Current employees who do not rehabilitate or who have a second confirmed test which shows illegal drug use may be disciplined in accordance with Civil Service Commission adverse action procedures. It is the policy of Jose D. Leon Guerrero Commercial Port to inform applicants and employees of the drug screening program prior to being conducted. The authority will consider the drug screening results and the medical information provided by applicants and employees as confidential. I think it's very important that anybody that is interested in any discussion about drug-free workplace policies consult with the document so that they understand the full play of what is being considered here and how the policies are very strict and adhered to. Even myself, in the first couple months that I was employed there, was made to take a random drug test along with many employees. There's no discrimination about who gets tested and who is required to adhere to the policy. So I just want to read the statement of policy because I think it brings into circle what the general manager was describing in terms of some of the more recent developments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Tideway, do you have any questions at this time?
Sidus Masi, Madam Chair. Rory, during Director Respicio, I have to remember where we are right now when I talk to you.
Fine.
Okay. Director Respicio, well, just for the sake. You talked about safe harbor, that you don't have safe harbor, or you do? You don't have safe harbor?
Yeah, my reading of it is we don't have safe harbor, and many people think safe harbor is when you're told to take a drug test, you declare that you're using drugs. That's not safe harbor. Safe harbor is you have to come in ahead of time. But we do have the employee assistance program that outlines exactly what I'm doing. Call out the employees, call out the leaders to bring them in, to set them up with Guam Behavioral Health, to get them the work that the help that they need.
It was mentioned too about, or earlier in your conversation, about an individual who was able to alert uh, uh, the employees that they're going to be doing a check. And how do you think that individual knew about this check that was going to happen?
So thank you for the question, Senator. So it wasn't tipping on a random drug test. It was tipping on a routine search of property that Port Police does routinely. And so when, as part of the disciplinary process, I met with the supervisor and the deputy general manager and the employees. And the employee really explained that his message was not anything near don't bring drugs to the port. He affirmed that he's against drug use. He's in favor of drug testing and a drug-free workplace. It was something else that was nothing related to drugs, and it wasn't any harm at all. And so he was just, because as you know, they have family members. So the fast way to get information through is through that divisional chat. And so I'm still having to decide, what we're going to do with that employee. But I could assure you that he did not mean any malice by saying, don't bring drugs into the port. Don't even bring illegal stuff into the port.
And was mentioned, Rory, earlier that because there was going to be some checking that, you didn't answer my question. My question was, have you looked in to see how he was able to get that information that the port was going to do a check? And regardless, Rory, whether it's, material stuff or, that you were talking about, I mean, this is how they're able to do the same thing with drugs, whether it's, a cockfight knife, the knife they use for cockfighting, that's obvious illegal. And then versus drugs, I mean, it could be the same thing. So again, my question is, that individual you spoke to, when he gave out that information on the WhatsApp chat, have you looked into finding out how he was able to get that information? Where did he get it from? And the same goes with, I'm alluding to the same thing when it comes to random drug testing. And, it's put out there that tomorrow, hey, everybody, someone show up for sick, because we're going to have a random drug testing. So that's my. Okay.
So I believe I answered your question. What he was tipping them was a search of the vehicle.
I was asking, how do you think he got that information that there was going to be a check?
Well, because he was searched. He came early, like at 6 a.m., and his vehicle was searched randomly. And then so he just put on the chat right away, hey, they're searching, doing random search for property. And that was my concern too, because I'd only informed one person the day before in HR that we're going to do this drug testing. And then I had the same reaction that you did, is how did the employee know before coming to work that there was a search, but it wasn't drug testing, it was search of the private property, the vehicle. And he came early.
That's okay. Thank you for that. That's what I was asking. And what about with regards to drug testing? How many people know firsthand when that's going to happen?
Just HR person, the PHR is our vendor, and myself.
Okay, so three individuals. Okay.
And so remember, when that division was identified, 24 people were tested. All the 24 people on site were tested. The 2 people evaded. And what we did is we had HR contact them and said, because you were physically at the port, you have to submit a specimen. If you don't, then you're presumptive positive.
Before coming to the port, Rory, as a general manager, and even when you were as a senator, that there were, people were bringing up concerns about the port and how drugs are coming in through the port, also the airport, area, point of entries, I'm not just pegging them. I mean, it's coming in. And did you feel that there was an issue with this back then?
Well, we always hear the chatter. And even during the Leon Guerrero Tenorio transition, I was the subcommittee chair for the port. And that's the chatter that we hear. But since being at the port, we have not had any evidence of any drugs that were in any containers, or whether there were drugs on any of those vessels. What we did want to make sure is that we're going to facilitate as much as we can to support customs to do these inspections. And so you might ask them specifically, how come they're not inspecting to the percentage that Senator Pito and others, all of us want? But from an operational perspective, we don't see that customs is in the way of port operations, and we have to do this simultaneously. And so because, and then we're also hearing the chatter of the drug use here at this place. Like I said, from our drug testing based on workplace accidents, we didn't start having any positives until December of last year. And then from December of last year, we had those 2 cases. Then we wanted to start the new year. And as Senator Torres pointed out, we have to inform the employees over and over that we can test based on random drug testing, reasonable suspicion, workplace incident. That's what the policy provides. And so when we have 3 already, so then that's when we started going out, and the data shows that 24 were tested, 24 came back negative. So all this chatter of the port,
3 ran away, or 2 ran away.
Yeah, 2 ran away, but for those,
not a, it's not 100% clearance. You keep bringing 24 up, but we're forgetting the other 2 that ran away.
Well, and also we don't really know why they resigned. We can suspect, we can kind of come to conclusions of why they resigned, and we don't know why they evaded. But let's say 26 were tested and 2 came back. I mean, I know 1 is 1 too many, but I think it's not responsible for us to feed into the port employees are on drugs. I mean, they come to work having to deal with COVID, having to deal with the very tough job they have. Blue collar worker environment is very hard. And I appreciate the work that they do. And the last thing we want to do is beat up on them by feeding into the stigma. Now, if I tested 24 people and 24 came back positive, I wouldn't put that under the rug either. I'll say we're going to see which of the 24 want to get help, which don't want to get help. They don't deserve or belong here at the port. And then we just have to go forward.
Rory, I don't think anybody here is trying to beat up on the port. We're just trying to keep our community safe, I really appreciate the chair who's provided us all the information on every newspaper article that came out with regards to this concern. And I greatly appreciate that, Madam Chair, for you putting up so that we can go back and review some of the issues that were brought up. And one of the greatest concerns in our community is that this is an area that has to have trust, major trust. It's like, they're held at a higher standard, like our police department, our fire department. They're all held at a higher standard. And an area like this, there's got to be some trust, I understand, but we also have to make sure that we put individuals into these positions that gain our trust and not have lost our trust. Now, my last question, Madam Chair, so I can allow to move on, is who creates these rules and regulations? I'm looking here that was provided to us regarding your drug-free workplace program policy. Is this created through a AAA process? Is it something that's created by the board, or how is this created? And when's the last time it was updated?
Well, the personnel rules and regs are created by statute. The drug-free workplace policy are board policies, and this standard operating procedure, which implements the drug-free workplace policy, was created in 2010. But if you look at the port's standard operating procedures and Department of Administration's standard operating procedures, they're almost synonymous. And you recall, Senator, you were in the legislature with me when Senator Etta introduced a bill to adopt the personnel rules and regs for the port. Which governs our policy.
So the last time it was updated, this drug-free workplace program, last time it was updated was 2010, Rory? Is that what you're saying?
2010, yeah. 2000.
Okay, it's 2020-21. So I hope the port and Madam Chair that they too look at change. Times have changed, so you want to adjust to the times and learn from your mistakes and incorporate some of those changes in there. I hope so you look at that later on, Rory. I appreciate that.
Yeah, if you can point out where you believe my mistakes are, I'm certainly open to those
Well,
constructive.
you didn't write out these drug-free workplace program policies. You didn't do that. It was done in 2010. What I'm suggesting is to go over there and revamp and maybe add some additional safety measures in there or things that people have. And I agree when the chairman brought up the zero tolerance. Especially in an area like this, that might be considered zero drug tolerance, especially in areas like the port and the airport, may be considered. So it's just a suggestion to look at, again, the policy program that's in place.
What I think is zero tolerance is when you take some administrative action. I don't think zero tolerance is always that it has to end in termination. So so not having zero tolerance means not even disciplining them at all. I'm telling you, the consequences that are inflicted upon these people are very painful. Granted, they didn't lose their job, but the consequences for them testing positive, to include the hard work that they have to undergo to continue to work at the port, it's not easy. It's not easy. And so maybe we need to define what zero tolerance is. Are you suggesting that an employee get terminated even after he or she has come forward and said, I want to do the hard work? And it's not even, understand that the port invests a lot of training in these individuals. And so you have to look at these things holistically, just like when I talked about the COVID following the CDC guidelines for critical infrastructure worker. It's easy to tell an employee you're exposed to someone who was positive, stay home for 14 days. We had tested 180 people within 3 working days. I cannot move cargo if 180 people are quarantined for 14 days. So it sounds good to say, but in a practical reality, in our world here at the port, it's not practical. And so, but in terms of trust, I hope the community sees that we are taking very aggressive stances on the 3 cases that we had involving drugs.
Yeah. And I thank you for also considering the future as well for our port with regards to that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Taitigui. Senator Brown, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, I do. Because, certainly I'm aware, having been at the port for 6 years, that there are some concerns. I mean, the majority of the port employees are very good and know their responsibility to themselves and their community. But we certainly have had issues with regards to individuals in very critical positions that unfortunately tested positive for drugs. But I just want to clarify with Mr. Respicio with regards to random drug testing. You did allude to this most recent situation of 24 employees were decided to step out and you've taken, they've since resigned. But during your 2-year period, have you implemented random drug testing with regards to your designated employees? Aside from incidences where, they get into an accident and that's almost like an automatic drug test, but just in general to keep track of your employee population to make sure that, your employees are not on drugs.
Yeah. Well, first of all, 3 employees tested positive. I tested 24 and 24 were negative. So in your response to your question about the random drug testing, I'd explained that all of the first year, even when we were testing based on workplace accidents, there's no cases of positives. It didn't start showing up until just last December, almost 2 years into the term here, where we had 3 cases. And so we informed all the employees, reminded them of the drug-free workplace, the drug testing, and based on those conditions which were required. And so when we did the drug test on the 1 division, 24 were tested and 24 came back negative. I don't know what the point of your question is, if I should have done random drug testing early on.
That is the point of my question. Did you conduct any random drug? Because you do have these designated positions where people fill a critical role They are either moving cargo, maintaining equipment, or providing security with regards to that, and the port has been designated as such. Have you conducted, and it's not uncommon, of course, you can have accidents, and not everybody that has an accident obviously is going to come up with a positive drug result. But with regards to random testing, just also to discourage the possibility, because I'm sure overnight we didn't have a drug problem one day, and the moment you became GM, it disappeared. So in the 2-year period prior to this most recent incident in December that you're referring to, have you conducted random drug testing among all your divisions, randomly, of course, I assume unannounced, in the last 2 years?
Well, that was the first instance I talked about based on the 3 positives that came up as a result of those workplace accidents. But understand too that coming into the port, there are so many things that we are working on getting the employees to understand who we are, what we're about. They're certainly aware of the drug-free workplace policy. They know that we do drug testing. So this idea of had we had tested in the first year, maybe we'll had more positives. Who's to say? But I don't think it's fair to say that not doing the random drug testing the first year would have resulted in all these employees testing positive. Again, our first data, and I can only go by the data, is we tested 24 in a division and 24 came back negative. And our leaders here, our supervisors and the division heads, they're actively going around identifying, encouraging those employees to come forward. And if they're saying they're not on drugs, they still could be drug tested based on reasonable suspicion.
Okay, so just to clarify, you are saying you have not conducted any random drug up until last month?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, Senator, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, could I just ask one more question?
Just one more
Just
question.
one more short question.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify in your statement with regards to now you're allowing, at least if an employee tests positive, you're allowing them the opportunity to go through treatment. So does that increase it from no tolerance to, what is the percentage of drug use then is being allowed if they're initially can test positive and still remain employed at the port in a designated position?
Of the 3 that test positive, I could tell you that the 2 of them out of the 3 are going to go through behavioral health. They're going to do the suspension in lieu of termination program. But remember, if they test positive at any time, they're going to be terminated immediately.
Madam Chair, I know there's a time constraint, and thank you for allowing my second question. I'm sure when we have your hearing next week, we can get further elaboration on our questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I will, and I'll provide the data because what I'm doing is no different from what you have done, Senator Brown, when you were general manager.
General Manager Roy, we're going to recess right now, and we are going to continue the hearing on February 2nd at 0900 hours, that's 9 a.m., and then we'll roll off into our oversight hearing. Okay, and so really, colleagues, if you have any additional questions, I know we're pressed for time, but I think that we should really spend a little bit more time on discussing this drug-free workplace. It's been a concern in our community, and I thank you for sharing your concerns during this hearing, and I'd like us to continue this conversation. So I hope to see you again Tuesday, February 2nd at 0900 hours, and then we'll roll into the oversight hearing for the hiring processes within the port. Okay, thank you, everyone. It is now 17:27, 5:27 p.m. We will adjourn this informational hearing, or we will recess this informational hearing. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you.